that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5. Evil FB Network, Rumble X, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire, Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face. Of course, we'll join the Mighty Red KMT at the bottom of the hour, as we usually do at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's about time we get back to daylight savings time. Hopefully, in Trump the second year, we'll pass that. We'll get to that. Much, much more. The Gavin Newsom and the high taxes and all we've got going on. The stolen overturned truck. The police chase. A man dies on the 10 on a pursuit. Pursuits are some nasty crashes. This week we'll get into all of that and more. But as we usually said on that, and our lead story was Indiana University football pulled off the most improbable and maybe one of the greatest turnaround comeback stories in all of sports by winning the national championship. Now, Indiana basketball, Bobby Knight's been like number one. They've been in the championship feed for a long time, and they've been up on the, they've been in the mix in the top tier. Their football team, statistically was the worst, seemingly of all time. They hired a new coach. He came in, blustering, saying, hey, we're going to turn this thing around. We're going to go after it. We're going to kick some ass. 2026, we're going to be the year. We're going to be the badasses. I don't know if he exactly said that, but that goes on with my theme of 2026 is a year of badass. And it's starting out that way with this. This right here is saying it. The second theme I want to get on the pick up on this is never give up. Don't let anybody tell you just because you're 0-47 doesn't mean, and it's possible you can win game number 2 or the first game. It starts with 1. And there they are hoisting the championship trophy. They're down in Miami, and that should have been they were playing Miami. That should have been a home game. The crowd seemed to be rooting, which they usually do, for the underdog. It leaves most, and hopefully it will give people the fighting spirit that you can do it, even though the odds may be insurmountable. You might not be able to, everybody may tell you you're out of your freaking gourd. And as it says, many college football fans, Indiana Hoosiers, never in a million years dreamed they would be college football's national championship. They were like the laughing stock. The kid that gets picked last on the baseball team or the football team or whatever. They went undefeated, won the national championship game, as it says, 27-21. Fernando Mendoza leading the team of the 2 scoring drives to make it 10-0 at halftime. It was like, it was meant to be. Maybe it's a precursor, and I'm hoping that this is a sign that 2026, you're going to see a lot of things, hopefully, that you will never see before. You might even get a Republican governor a center-right governor elected in California. Maybe Trump beats the midterm jinx and actually increases his advantage in the House of Representatives. Maybe we're on the comeback. Kurt Shigoni, as you see, are lifting the championship trophy, is that guy that told everybody, hey, I'm going to turn this thing around. And everybody laughed at him. Well, he's laughing at everybody now. Because he's hoisting the trophy, and what he said came true. He said, I'm going to turn this thing around. We're going to be the best. We're going to win this thing all. And everybody's snickering and chuckling, and oh, he's insane. Never happened. Well, it happened January 19th, 2026. A lot of what you see, and beat the pro football teams. What, the Miami quarterback makes $3 million a year, is what, been playing for 6 years or something? They're essentially, the big college teams are basically what you would probably call AAA in baseball. I mean, semi-pro teams. The way we've done the way we've corrupted the system. But as we said, this is the year 2026. You better get your badass on, and I think you're going to see a lot of surprising things. You're going to see a lot of unexpected things that people told you couldn't happen will happen in 2026. Like eggs. I walked into Smart and Final today. Eggs were $1.47 a dozen. Last year, they were $8 freaking dollars. $10. $12 is the highest I see. $12, $1 an egg. And we know what happened today 1 year ago. 1 year ago. This is why eggs are $1.47 a dozen instead of 12. Your eggs are about 12, 13 cents a piece instead of $1. That's because the great Donald J. Trump wheeled out slow Joe Biden 1 year ago today, put his hand, addled Joe, had to load him into the ambulette to cart him out. And Donald J. took over 1 year ago today, January 20th, 2025. The border is secure. Without a law changing. Remember all Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Gavin Newsom and Corey Jackson and baby Jesus. Listen, we got to have comprehensive immigration reform. We can't stop the border. 1 year ago today, with a stroke of a pen, with an executive order from the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and the border was closed. We are legally allowing 1 million people. The law says today, as Congress has declared it, which they have plenary power, which means absolute. We have and will, until they change it, allow 1 million people in per year, legally. You have to produce, you are supposed to produce, and swear allegiance to the United States, pledge your allegiance to the Constitution, swore to uphold it, adapt to our culture, as Hillary Clinton and others have said, Dianne Feinstein, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden back in the 90s. You come in here and you learn English. You assimilate to our country. That's what changed 1 year ago today with this action. And now that we head into the second year of the Trump administration and such, and we head into another silly season, as I say, the even number years, election season, it's time to act like Coach Chris. Get your badass on. Not, oh, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to show you how we're going to do it. If you stand it in our way, we're going to shove it down your throat and pull it out your ass. That's getting your badass on in 2026, and we need more of that. Well, much more to come on today's show. We'll get into this and much more. It'll be one wild ride. Of course it will be a wild ride. I think that game, that impressed me, the Indiana football team rolling out there just against all odds. Wiping the floor with every team that got in front of them. The ragtag, bad news bears, however you want to say it, those guys rock. So if you think, if you're getting down or depressed, or I don't want to vote because nothing changes, or Trump isn't moving fast enough, or yada, yada, yada. Think if Indiana, Coach Chris, and the Indiana football team thought like that, they would not be national champions today. Something to ponder and act on, more importantly. Again, as we said, this is the first year of the second term of Donald J. Trump with that horrendous 4-year interruption that the convalescent resident occupied the White House. And again, like you said, eggs from $12 a dozen here in California down to $1.47 today. Walk into the Smart and Final here at Alessandro and Paris Boulevard here, Moreno Valley, California. Darn near. I thought I would never see the day. Never see the day eggs would be $1.47 a dozen. We got a lot of conditions, and we'll get to Gavin Newsom and some of the stuff that's been coming out. And we're going to update you of the otherwise you should be getting, every household in California should be getting an $11,000 tax refund today, or this year, based on the budget. But one of the things in this one is going to be very, very, very important. Musk put this out, a retweet from what Trump said the other day. Here we
All we want is voter ID. You go to a grocery store, you have to give ID. You go to a gas station, you give ID. But for voting, they want no voter ID. That's only for one reason, because they cheat. We would pass that in 15 minutes. If you don't get it, you'll never pass that. You'll never talk about mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots make it automatically corrupt. If you have mail-in ballots, automatically it's correct. Even Jimmy Carter, they had the Carter Commission after he got out of office, and he had a group of very distinguished people, Democrats and Republicans, and they passed, they recommended things take place. It was a long time ago. And they said about mail-in ballots, if there is mail-in ballots, there will definitely be corruption because, they pass through.
voter fraud. Voter fraud. Jimmy Carter. Howard Baker was on that commission. It was a bipartisan of establishment hacks that you never seen. And they said, do not do mail-in ballots. This is so simple. Every time you add a process, you add, whether it by corruption or just things go wrong, every time you add a process, there's a bigger chance for failure or frauding the system or doing corrupt, illegal things with a system. Same with voting. When you have this mail-in ballot and 30 days to mail them in and all this stuff, you know, somebody can walk in with 10,000 ballots. Oh yeah, I got all these from Granny over at the convalescent home. It's right. If Trump doesn't accomplish another thing, if he can get voter ID mail-in ballots, we will go a long way, a humongous way. Into solving the crisis, the out-and-out thievery of our elections. And California is ground zero, along with Cook County, Illinois, which is the Chicago area, actually Cook County. That's where you're going to get the fraud. We've been doing it for decades. Even when we cleaned it up somewhat after the 2005 lawsuit here in Riverside County. And Deborah Bowen, a Democrat, got elected Secretary of State in 2006 and eliminated all the machines. We were back to paper ballots. Now we're full circle with this whole mail-in ballot thing. Mail-in ballot is just a disaster. Here's what we have to do. We have to follow the rule of law. Tennessee is doing it. Speaker Cameron Sexton there announced a plan to put an end to illegal immigration in Tennessee. Laws will be enforced locally and statewide. We will preserve legal immigration. Let's do that again so people can hear this. Seem to have wax in their ears or something. Preserve legal immigration. Protect taxpayers and end sanctuary cities and loopholes. You know, if you want to stop the ICE enforcement that's going on, 98.7% of it will stop if we eliminate the sanctuary city and state crap. The reason they're in your communities is a lot of it, maybe the majority of it, probably, maybe even almost all of it, is because they can't walk into the county or state jail, especially in California or places like Minneapolis or Chicago or New York or Portland or Seattle. Say, hey, you know, we got a detainer. You got this guy in lockup. We got federal charges. Send him, you know, we want him. Oh, he's an illegal immigrant. We got to protect him. So you got child molesters, murderers. Trump went through it today, running through your streets, maybe living next door to you. They're definitely in your communities. By the 20 or 30 million like Joe Biden let into this country. John King, one of the head honcho political reporters over at CNN, has been tracking a young lady in Iowa. Well, a swing state. She's considered a swing voter and was a big Joe Biden supporter. bought into the clot shot and the masking. And there's a bunch of white hillbillies out there just looking to shoot everybody that doesn't look like them, and the whole rhetoric. After 1 year of the second Trump administration, let's see what an Iowa mom in the heartland, right in the middle of America, cross-section of the whole United States. Let's ponder and listen in to what she had to say in the John King interview.
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This breakfast conversation, our sixth visit with Betsy.
Breakfast conversation, let's repeat that. That definitely needs to be repeated.
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This breakfast.
Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. If we wouldn't have a bunch of thugs out there intimidating everybody, she would have said, yeah. Not kind of, yes. My life, my community's life, my state's life, my state, my country is in much better shape. No, humongously better shape than when we had addled Joe Biden in there.
This conversation, our sixth visit with Betsy Sarcone, dating back to August 2023.
So they've been tracking Betsy for almost 3 years. Just as we're coming out of the whole COVID nightmare.
Her shift beyond dramatic. A DeSantis, then a Haley voter, said she would vote for Joe Biden if Trump won the Republican nomination. But
one of these, and Ron, nothing to get Ron DeSantis, great governor. And I don't buy into the whole we got to attack Ron DeSantis, and we'll get into that in a second. But she's definitely not MAGA, definitely not a loon left-wing, goofball. Here's what she has to say.
She changed her mind.
I think Biden probably changed me more than Trump. I think watching nothing be done, for 4 years about an open border.
Now,
nothing done. Nothing done for 4 years about an open border. Instantly. Without changing a law, without Congress lifting a finger, with an executive order, Trump stopped 30 million people coming across the border. Cold. Dead in its tracks. And this lady was ecstatic. Maybe she didn't vote for it, but she's reaping the benefits of those of us who did.
she gives Trump an A-, loves the immigration crackdown, just closed a big real estate sale, and thinks the economy is picking up.
Thinks the economy is picking up? Look at that bright, shining, smiling face. Does that look like gloom, despair, and agony on me? This is what we're doing. And again, we're creating the narrative, and look at all these nattering nabob of negativism that's out there. These cats, 1,000%. And they may be on the right, they may be on the left, they may try to market themselves as moderates or political pundits. And I got a couple gripes with the way Trump's done things or hasn't done things. But overall, I share the same sentiment as Betsy in Iowa, who overcame her Trump derangement syndrome.
Sarcone laughed at Trump's 2020 election fraud claims when we first met. another big change.
I'm starting to question the election.
I'm starting to question the election. Now, what's coming up is key. She went from, oh, you know, those tinfoil, Constitution shirt wearing, white hillbilly, gun toting, just, we hate them. You know, screaming election fraud every time they just make up claims out of the air. Trump pulled that stuff out of his rear end. But what's key, let's see if you pick up on the really key point. As much as I like it, or appreciate her changing her opinion or seeing the light about election fraud, let's see what happens next.
Met, another big change.
I'm starting to question the election of 2020, right?
He lost the election in 2020.
I don't know.
He lost the election in 2020.
Look at that. That was the key point. That's not reporting, John King. She's going, well, you know those crazy hillbillies. They might have a point about that election fraud. I'm starting to question it myself. He lost the election. Well, no, he lost the election. That's not reporting, John King. Now, if you want to be a commentator and say, yes, I'm going to stick to my guns and tell the lie, John King, until you're looking at the roots of the grass, that's your right, but that destroys your credibility.
Election in
I
2020.
don't know.
He lost the election in 2020.
The suburbs revolted against Trump in his first midterm, and Democrats are banking on it again. But Republicans don't have to worry about Sarcone. She likes Congressman Nunn and loves that her daughters can use a school choice plan.
There's that.
School choice. Loves that their daughters can use a school choice. Betsy Sarcone. Betsy Sarcone, who had Trump derangement syndrome. I'm going to vote. If I don't get Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. This is my guy. Now she's full on MAGA. Who would have ever thought that? It's about as improbable, or maybe impossible, as Indiana winning the national championship and going 16-0 in the 25-26 college football season. But it's real. Believe it. Because it happened. It's happening. And hopefully we're just in the beginning of this cycle. Because Lord knows we need, in the next 3 years, hopefully Trump gets it into sixth-gear overdrive and really starts buckling down and getting to the nitty-gritty and getting into the details and pushing harder. Hopefully we got Musk on board. We'll rally the forces. We'll beat the odds. We'll increase the center-right, freedom and liberty types in the House of Representatives. We'll use the Roy strategy to take back, to elect a center-right governor in California. We'll get rid of the supermajority of stupid in our legislatures. We'll start cleaning up our school boards and city councils. county board of supervisors, and everything else. Couple wild chases going on. Again, we're back into the chase thing. Stolen truck overturns after a pursuit. It's KTLA 5 report. Hopefully, here we go.
This is the end of it. We don't know much about this, but a truck is on its side.
All right, Gil, are you in Sky 5?
Yeah, that's right, Lou and Glenn. You're looking at this box truck, a stolen truck the sheriffs were chasing here. This is on District Boulevard and Corona. Now, the truck was going about 45, 50 miles an hour eastbound here when a deputy tried to put out a spike strip in front of it. It swerved violently to get around it and overturned. So at this point...
So the ding-dong tried to miss the spike strip. Well, the spike strip was effective. That's a new way to use the spike strip if you're driving a big Vox van, high center of gravity, and you make wild turns. Your odds of flipping it over are real good, especially if you don't know how. When a car, as we see, bikes up or a box van or anything, go-kart, UAV, anything, ATV, gets up on two wheels, you don't know how, which is you turn back into the way the thing is coming in. If it bikes up like this, you just turn that way and you have a chance of setting it back down. Doesn't always work, and I can attest to that a few times. But that was in a very, very, very wild scene out there in Los Angeles. Ontario suspect crashes and dies on the 10 freeway after another pursuit. As we say, here we go with the ABC 7 report. Hopefully. Here we go.
2 o'clock this morning at Euclid in Ontario is turning out to be a huge deal. Let's go to some video that was shot there at the scene, westbound 10. It happened about 2 o'clock this morning. It's on the Euclid off-ramp. We had a vehicle that was being pursued by CHP, and I believe it might have been Pomona PD, if I'm not mistaken, on the 10 westbound. Ontario PD, I should say. And then one of the vehicles, a patrol car, was damaged. The other vehicle went into the bushes in the off-ramp. Just the off-ramp shut down, and it's a fatal crash. Now, we don't have an update yet on the officer. We don't think the officer was killed. Looks like the person driving the vehicle may have been. But this is all on the 10 freeway westbound at Euclid. We'll go to the map and show you exactly where it's at.
So that was a harrowing crash, and as far as we know, the officer was not injured seriously in the crash, but obviously the suspect is now at room temperature, as Rush Limbaugh used to say. The great Rush Limbaugh would say on that. So there will be no trials or expense or anything else. We'll get to the Gavin Newsom and more of how you're getting fleeced by your government in California. Like you've never been fleeced before, as they say. We definitely got some major issues, and we need to buckle down. We do, and I don't want to hear no excuse after the Indiana football thing. No excuses. Zero. I don't want to hear, oh, it's hot or it's too cold or if you vote or nothing ever changes. Look at how much has changed in a year in the United States of freaking America. It's absolutely incredible. It can happen. You just got to have the will to do it. You've got to get your badass on in 2026. No question about it. Because if you don't, we're all going to be looking. We'll get after it. We'll get to that. Maybe we'll touch on the Caruso thing or why he's not running for governor of that. There's a lot of interesting
30 seconds, Roy.
There's a lot of interesting plays that are going on all across from nationwide to your hometown to Iowa moms switching from Biden to Trump. in this year that everybody's supposed to be all up in arms about stuff. Sean said we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET here in a few seconds. Pick this up.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Much more. Best hillbilly hoedown around.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music. Comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the Evil FB Network Rumble. X, YouTube, check it out. Type in iNewsWire Roy Bleckert. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face on there. Covered a lot of stuff on that 1 year ago today. 1 year ago today, eggs were at $12 a dozen here in California. They're at $1.47. I walked into the Smart and Final today at Alessandro and Paris Boulevard in Moreno Valley, California. And my jaw dropped. 1 year ago. What happened 1 year ago today? The inevitable happened. Donald J. Trump wheeled out the convalescent patient from the White House, took over, put his hand on the Bible, swore to the Constitution of the United States of America, and became the 47th President of the United States. And the border was shut down immediately without one law being changed. The border crisis was over immediately. Gas prices have come down precipitously. Inflation has stabilized. Real wage growth in 1 year has been up 1.5%. It was down 4% under the convalescence reign of terror. That means your dollar bought less, your labor bought less. You had to work harder just to maintain the same standard of living. Now, like a lot, there's a few things I wish Trump would do. But number one thing, I wish he would fire Pam Bondi from Attorney General. Move. I heard some national guys talking about it. Maybe we should move Harmeet Dillon up. Yeah, that'd be number one. Stop talking and start doing. We want to see arrest. We want to see prosecution. We want to see action, action, action. We have seen it, but now's the time to grab 6-gear overdrive, mash that pedal through the frickin' firewall, and just flat go for it. Like I said, I don't want to hear any excuses. Zero. Indiana football team. Laughing stock. Worst college football team of all time. Went 16-0 and won the national championship. With a bunch of ragtag guys that nobody wanted. Coach, he said, yeah, I'm going to turn this around. They all laughed at him. Well, he shoved it down their throats and out every opponent that came in front of him out the rear end. And they are the champs. So I don't want to hear no excuses about anything. Get your badass on in 2026, like Trump, like Indiana football. And let's go out there and get after it and get it. No excuses. zero zip nada. Betsy from Iowa went from Trump derangement syndrome to, man, I'm just loving me some Donald J. Trump and what's happened in my community, state, and country. Now, this is what's on the plate. And if Indiana football can win, we can beat the midterm jinx. We need to get more center-right freedom and liberty types in the House of Representatives and the Senate, in our governorships and our school boards and our city councils, county board of supervisors, sewer cleaning commissioner, and everything else. Because as we've seen in the 4-year reign of terror, how quickly it can go away. And those of you who are in California can attest to this. California has been, in the last 30 years, where dreams go to die. And of course, taxes skyrocket. Gavin Newsom has been a failure, yet he's called the successful governors like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis a failure when they've actually been the success. People are moving to Texas and Florida from California and New York and Chicago or Illinois because of the hellholes they've created. And a lot of what that is. We are living this. The left's California disaster for 30 years. High taxes, epic failure. California right now, today, $10,000 per capita in state income taxes and sales taxes and fees and whatever. This isn't just income tax, that's all the taxes you pay. Texas and Florida are at half. $5,000 and $5,500. They're only half of all the taxes paid. Income taxes aren't the only tax you pay. You pay so many you don't even realize how many there are. Yet he calls Abbott and DeSantis of Texas and Florida governors a failure. And he says a great success. MAGA. And the hat he's wearing stands for most useless governor in America. And he is the failure, and Ron DeSantis is the success. Greg Abbott is the successful governor. At half the rate, their fuel prices are 50% less. We're at $4.21 average a gallon. They're at $2.50 in Florida and Texas. Homeless exploding in California. They're getting rid of the vagrants in the communities in Texas and Florida. They're cooperating with ICE. You don't see ICE going into Amarillo, Texas, or Naples, Florida, or in Grady Judges County, down there in Florida, because they cooperate with ICE. It's simple. They go in there. If ICE, Homeland Security, whomever has a detainer or wants somebody, has warrants for someone in their county or state jail, they say, hey, whenever Juan, Tyrone, or Jim is getting out of jail, let us know. We want to pick him up. We got warrants. Well, in California, Illinois, New York, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, they say not no, but hell no, we're not going to tell you. That's why you don't see them there, and you see them in these blue states that have had the sanctuary cities and that. And like Tennessee said we had earlier, they're eliminating. Well, they didn't have many of them, but they're eliminating them further. So Tennesseans, the people of Tennessee, not only can be safe, but can live long and healthy, productive lives. California's education system once was number one in the nation, is now below Texas and Florida. In fact, we had the finest university system. Now it's going to Florida. Now we got one of the worst. Despite spending $27,000 per Newsom's new numbers per student. Darn near twice as much as they're spending in Florida and Texas per student. They're getting way better results, better student achievement, kids that can actually read, write, do arithmetic, and think for themselves, and don't melt the first time they get a hangnail or something. Of course, our services suck. Crumbling roads, broken promises, it costs $500 million a mile. $500 million. And that was a couple years ago. I'm sure it's much more. $500 million per mile to build a freeway. 1 mile. In Texas, it's less than half, about 40%. Same with Florida. Higher taxes, much higher taxes, equal worse everything. The loony left, the screamers, is it Gavin Newsom, Fatboy Pritzker, Yokel Hokel, Corey Jackson, Baby Jesus, Ulysses Cabrera, and on and on. Oh, their success. They ran things in 12. We love paying $12 a dozen, $1 per egg, instead of 13 cents. And they say, those evil, that evil Greg Abbott. You know, he's running around in that wheelchair. Ron DeSantis standing behind the American flag. Oh, the horror. As we say, think again, get a reality check. California's left disaster, higher taxes, epic failure, gas 50% higher, vagrants exploding, vagrant crisis off the charts, education tanking, services suck, worse everything. Hashtag California Exodus, hashtag MAGA, Gavin Newsom, most useless governor in America. Hashtag, this is everyone's reality check. We got to get after this stuff. It's imperative. Our future depends on it. We have one of the most egregious failures of a government in California, brought to you by teachers, cops, and firefighters who have financed the politicians that are screwing you. And I have yet one. I'm waiting for the day when one teacher, cop, or firefighter will sit in the chair next to me and prove me wrong. Union member, whatever. Please bring it. SEIU's trying to get the billionaire tax. Even Gavin Newsom knows. And he knows it because he's going, he's history in less than a year. He wants to be president. He's actually advocating now for the Donald Trump economic policy. SEIU's trying to get the billionaire tax, We've all went through the fallacy of that. They pay 1%, pays almost 40% of the income taxes in California. They're bailing because of this. Well, guess what? When they bail, guess who they're going to be looking at to make up that 40% that's probably going to be gone this year? Whether the SEIU is successful or not. Here's the Ashley Zavala report from KCRA3.
California already heavily relies on its top earners for a bulk of the cash that provides key state services. So some state leaders like Governor Gavin Newsom are worried that even just losing a few of these people could mean a huge hit to the state's bottom line. As this debate intensifies, the governor is doubling down on his fight.
It's a badly drafted effort. It's already had an outsized impact on this state.
A new billionaire tax in California, still a non-starter for Governor Gavin Newsom. He made this clear at a press conference in San Francisco.
Okay, we really don't need to go much further into that except to point out, we just showed you, you're paying twice the tax rate of Florida and Texas, paying 50% more 50% more for gas and electricity and just about everything else. You're paying twice as much per student for education, and every one of them in California is a frickin' failure compared to those states. And we've had the biggest, our income tax is the biggest tax the rich on that. And what does the SEIU do? They're going to double down on this. This is why. This is why in the 30s and in the 40s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Mr. Progressive, champion icon, worshipped of the center left, said, do not let public employees organize into a union because they're a monopoly and they will kill everything. George Meany, in the 50s, when the AFL-CIO was formed, said exactly the same thing. So all of you that are in a public employee union, which mostly the SEIU is now, or you're the teachers, or the cops, or the firefighters, your way of doing it has run to abject failure. And any of you that want to bring it, please come in here and sit in the seat next to me. I will fire off the other microphone and let's get it on. Quit being cowards. Because if you're right, you would relish the opportunity to prove me wrong. Even Gavin Newsom is advocating for the Trump policies now that he's done with California. It's on to, let's see if I can screw up the United States. But he needs their money. He needs the tech money, which is multi-billionaires, and that he's very familiar with. He needs their bucks to run for president, so he's coming out for that as soon as he gets in. He will not only throw them under the bus, he will have a whole fleet of buses to run over the billionaires, and then back up and run over them again, and then go forward and back in 27,000 times until you make sure they are completely dead and wiped out. This is what we got. And this is what we have to face the reality check. Past history, best indication of future behavior. Hopefully, we're going to get after it. And if you don't think California's a complete freaking disaster, Amy Reichert from down San Diego way, who's been jumping on this whole thing with the fraud and the Nick Shirley and all that. Apparently, in Gavin Newsom's California, an unregistered sex offender living in a licensed family home daycare can trigger only $500 state fine. ICE arrested Ezekiel Cruz Rodriguez at daycare. Prior convictions include lewd acts with a child under 14, sexual battery, DUI, plus gang ties and multiple prior removals from the United States. There's a complaint in the investigations and all that. That's the evidence we have. Appears to be true. If not, Gavin Newsom or whomever should be able to refute this. They'll put your kids under the tutelage of a sex offender, of lewd acts with a child under 14, sexual battery, DUIs, gang ties, illegal alien that's been removed several times. I guess sometimes it's beyond belief. I want to touch on the Rick Caruso part. He announced he was not running for governor or mayor of LA, which he did last time, spent $100 million and lost to Buffoon Bass. He said no mas to run for LA mayor. Why did he walk away? Rumors explode. Is he scared? Waste more dollars? No hope? That's my surmise. He figured he had no chance, even if he spent $100 million. Because he backed Prop 50. He's backed all these left-wing causes, even though he's a billionaire developer and all that, probably worth about estimated $5 or $6 billion. Very successful. Done the Grove down there, his big signature project in LA. But if he didn't think, and I've said this, they'll elect Karen Bass over him. Would they rather have the real deal? And I think in the California governor's race, he's looking at it like, holy crap. Because if he thought he had a shot to run, he'd open up he could spend $250 million like that in a campaign to run for governor or even LA mayor. The fact that somebody is odious with the failed policies of Rick Caruso. This goes to show you in politics, people would rather have the real deal. They would rather have Karen Bass and Rick Caruso because they know where Karen Bass is at. They don't want somebody that tries to put both toes in or da-da-da-da-da. At least, and even I do, I have respect for somebody who stands their ground, even though I don't even know one thing. I mean, there's probably something. Not going to say never. I don't know anything yet I've agreed with on Karen Bass. But at least she believes what she's saying. So this is why I think Caruso ultimately decided to bail. He flat knows he can't win. And it would just be sending $100 million, $250 million or whatever down the rat hole like he did the last time. Like he did in 22 for LA mayor. He doesn't want to fix the elections. He's not a stand-up guy. But going out there and saying that. And for those who want, no, we need to keep Eric. Don't be suing to get him off the ballot. We need to keep Eric Swalwell in. The only way you're going to get a Chad Bianco or a Steve Hilton in is if you get them in the top 2, and we get enough of those 7 or 8 dwarfs to split the vote up enough where we get Steve and Chad 1 and 2. Because the internals I may have seen, even Betty Yee, the ding-dong nobody knows about, still beats Chad or Steve 1-on-1 by 15 points, and it goes up from there. Katie Porter's more, Spy Swalwell, whomever. So I don't care if you're a Chad supporter or a Steve Hilton supporter. I'm comfortable with either one. But even if you think one is better than the only way is that I see, barring even a bigger miracle than the Indiana State football win in the championship, the only shot we got is to employ the Roy strategy, which the rats told us how to do in 2022 in SD4 in California, to split the center-right, the 40% or so of the center-right vote evenly, 20-20 between Chad and Steve. And with 7 or 8 candidates, it's very possible, in fact, extremely likely, that none of them will climb above the 20% range, and the choice will be in November 26th, Steve Hilton or Chad Bianco. And will you see some heads explode on that one? And what a glorious day it will be in June. We need to pull, and we're going to win this in the primary in California, at least on the state races, at least on that one. We shall see. Off to the city zoo here in a few seconds, as we say. And why is that not playing? As we usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 Hours Live for the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
All right, Roy, have fun at the city.
You got it.